Welcome to the CRO Talk Series, focused on the role and need for the CRO. At Markets and Markets, we find this a very relevant conversation, given that we work with clients to drive revenue impact, and the CRO is the key revenue driving role. I believe each of you will find this discussion and this series fascinating, because in this, you will see experts who have been CROs, you will see venture capitalists, you will see founders, you will see a whole ecosystem around B2B SaaS startups, actually focusing on how growth can be driven in an environment where customer value is paramount and customer choice is a given. Additionally, disruption has become a norm. Whether it is what genomics is doing to healthcare or 5G to the technology industry, drones to aerospace, EVs to auto, or sustainability to every industry. In this perfect storm, at Markets and Markets, we continue to look to help progressive CROs use the right kind of market intelligence to drive unique customer value and expand addressable markets to drive revenue impact. Do enjoy the session. All the very best.
Good day, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you once again to the Markets and Markets Chief Revenue Officer Talk Series. Most CROs typically grow up the hierarchy by excelling at sales, marketing, customer success, or revenue operations. However, in the CRO role, they take on the very new challenge of making all the customer-facing teams work in harmony towards the goal of customer delight and revenue growth. A key challenge for CROs is to reinvent the company's revenue profile in order to ensure that it stays relevant. And in this context, they also work closely with the product and engineering leadership of the company to define and grow new revenue streams. In this context, today's session, we have a leader who's taken a very distinct path to the corner office. He has spent a significant part of his corporate career on the engineering side of the world, taking on a full business leadership role only a few years back. In today's call, we will discuss his experiences, successes, and challenges running both R&D and business leadership roles in the company, the need for cost and business transformation, his best practices on engineering and customer-facing teams working together. That being said, it's my great pleasure to welcome our guest speaker, Miha Bobek, and series host, Devdeep Sengupta. Miha Bobek holds a PhD in mathematical modeling of dynamic systems from the University of Ljubljana. He has served in Danfoss as its R&D head for the last 18 years in the fields of valves, actuators, electronic controls, heat exchangers, small, large, and flat energy transfer stations, optimization, and monitoring software. In 2017, Miha started the DEN vertical with the aim to digitalize and vertically integrated all the product offerings in district energy systems. In 2019, he became the vice president of the DEN business unit. Besides this, Miha is an active member of various standardization bodies, the Slovenian National Innovation Committee, Chamber of Commerce, Fraunhofer Institute, and he also lectures at some engineering schools. He is also a president of the Slovenian national initiative, Let's Be Engineers, which promotes engineering among youth, especially girls. He has also published several articles in the fields of mechanical engineering, electrotechnics, management of innovation, economics, and human resources. Miha is a frequent guest on business and innovation conferences as well. Our host, Deep, has a proven track record of building winning culture, inspiring next generation leaders, and transforming legacy software business to cloud. Deep is currently the President and Chief Revenue Officer for Cloud4C, a global cloud managed services company, which helps large and mid-sized enterprises in their cloud transformation journey. Previously, as the President and MD for SAP in India and South Asia, he was an integral part of SAP's senior executive leadership team for APJ. Deep's passion for growth-oriented businesses have led him to recently work with several startups in B2B SaaS. As an investor and a board advisor, Deep is helping these startups with their GTM and growth strategies across people, products, process, and pipeline. Deep, over to you for the next steps.
Thank you, Vinod. And thank you for the warm welcome and the introduction. Really delighted to have Miha with us. It's a fascinating story about Miha's career journey, about Danfoss as an organization, how it is transforming itself from an industrial powerhouse to a digital powerhouse. So, Meha, what I wanted to do is that I wanted to jump straight into my questions. Um, you've had a remarkable career as an R&D engineer, and now you're a business leader. So what are the changes you have to make to make this transition personally and as well as professionally? We would love to understand your story, the story behind the transformation, the story behind your own transition.
Okay, thank you very much. So true, I started as a fresh engineer from the university. I actually had an option to stay at the university, but I felt that being assistant to the professor is less attractive than going to the industry. So I ended up in the industry, where I developed my first range of products, and then I felt I could actually do more. So I applied for project management, and I made one project. And in this project, I actually learned how to influence without authority, because I had a team. Nobody was really formally reporting to me, but I had a task which I needed to carry through. Then the opportunity came to become an R&D leader. I applied, I was chosen, and my first department was actually half in Germany, half in Slovenia. So I got a very intensive cultural learning. So how to manage two different cultures. Then further on, when I was in R&D, I was asked, also on my initiative, I made a lot of different R&D departments in Asia, Russia, anywhere in Europe, on different fields. And really this cross-cultural collaboration, cross-functional collaboration, and also cross-engineering really paved a way to my knowledge. And on top of it, also a lot of things about connected with lean, how to do lean production, how to do a lean R&D, and so on. And then back in 2017, there was opportunity to start a district energy vertical. I applied to it, I was chosen. I actually left the department of 100 people and started with 7, let's say, renegades in the brackets. And we started a journey which was vertical integration of the product portfolio, which was more or less a digitalization of the business. And on this journey, I would say I was always curious what were the customer pain points and what are customer successes. So based on that is more or less everything based. But how I personally transformed, I would say I was really a warrior at the beginning, and I became more a diplomat. So I have much more diplomatic role right now. And definitely I was a bricklayer at the beginning. Now I'm the architect. So taking much more strategic role in the company.
Fantastic, fantastic, Mia, and I think you laid it out very well. In terms of the transformation you have to make in your leadership style, in your engagement style. So that's very interesting. If I dig a little deeper into that, when you're heading R&D and when you're heading any of these strategic functions, you're more of I would say, a cost center, right? You expect budgets to be given, and so that you can invest in, so on and so forth. But when you're running a business, you're a profit center,
Yes.
right? So what's that shift you have to make personally for yourself, from being a cost center leader to being a business, P&L leader, and and in terms of galvanizing the team, some of the challenges you face personally.
So first thing was you're correct. When I was running R&D, I was always asking my superior to give me more budget, because then I can do more and you can do faster and stuff like this. But then suddenly, when I changed the role, I actually figured out that there are many guys like that asking me to allocate the budgets. And really the harmony and especially the alignment with P&L is crucial. So we actually run the business through the P&L. We always look where we can actually get opportunities, but also how much these opportunities would cost us, because it's always a cost to something. so that we always balanced it. And then this balanced development actually brought us to something which we call it's a profitable growth. So we are actually lifting both the top line and the bottom line all the time. And this we do because we actually have a variety of different choices where we choose from. So it's I would say, from a functional leader to a business leader, is the number of choices really expands. And that requires a strategy, and that requires a really conscious decisions which choice you want to go for.
Fantastic, fantastic. And the reason I asked that question, Miha, was we see, especially in the digital native world, a lot of new founders, a lot of founders who have got a technical background. When they have to build a business, many a times they possibly struggle a bit to be able to make that shift from being a technical leader to being a business leader. I think there's a perfect example, of an individual, of a leader who's made the transition. What I'll be interested to understand over here, Miha, is Danfoss has been a global leader in providing technology solutions for industries, various industries, especially around digitalization and sustainability. Now, obviously, you have some core strengths as an organization in particular industries where you see this shift of digitization, this shift of moving from a capex to a opex model happening more frequently. So, we would like to understand a little bit more about the journey of the organization and how it is transitioning.
Actually, Danfoss is actually playing in many different industries, from automotive through the refrigeration, motion control, and so on. The corner which I'm responsible for is called district energy, and in district energy, we were actually very well known as a traditional producer of the components. We were producing also energy transfer stations, but this was just a bigger component. It was just assembly of the component, despite we actually fooled ourselves at the beginning that we are producing the systems. And then when we started the journey in 2017, we asked ourselves where will be the value proposition which customer will notice. And we simply saw that the systems would have much more attractive value proposition compared to the components itself. So this is why we went into vertical integration. I would say really something into unknown, because we added a service layer of the business to the top. But when we look in terms of sustainability, how we transformed, before we could actually influence on a building or a group of buildings and so on, and that was managing a couple of kilowatts of energy. Now we can actually manage the whole city, and by managing the whole city, then we talk about megawatts or gigawatts. If you do 10% on 100 kilowatts or 10% on 1 gigawatt, is a significant difference in CO2 footprint. Another important topic which we actually onboarded here is by digitalizing our offering, we could also serve systems which have renewable resources, which are using waste heat and so on, because those systems are normally on lower energy levels. And by being on lower energy levels, the control of the system needs to be much more precise. And therefore, digitalization is there, because it's artificial intelligence who actually makes the decisions, is not left to the human. And so this is the way how we can help our customers to transform their urban areas into less CO2 footprint areas, and that we actually what we do right now.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Miha, if I relate to my personal experience of transitioning a traditional company, going through the transition of a traditional software company to being a SaaS and a cloud company, right? To being a cloud first kind of a company. There's always this pulse and pressure which happens in the organization. The traditional part of it would want to have would not want to change their processes, would not want to change a few things, right? Whereas the customer demands, when you're offering a new solution, a completely different revenue model, completely different contracting model, completely different engagement model, right? So what are the kind of, I would say, in your business, what are the kind of challenges you're faced in enabling this transition?
I mean, it started with very, very basics. Our ERP system didn't support the recurring revenue sales. And every item we sold, it needed to have a variable cost of manufacturing. So what's the variable cost of manufacturing? I can tell you it's €1, because this is the amount we actually put in. Then luckily, the whole downforce was on transition to change the ERP system that point of time, because we had multiple ERP systems. They were actually then merged into one big one. And then during this transition into one big ERP system, we could say, hey, we need that module as well. So this was one part. The second part was, as I said, we actually went into the vertical integration. So the competencies which we had in our new product development, they were simply not there. They were simply not there. We could imagine any kind of project, but would take forever because we simply didn't have competencies. So this is why we went into partnership, into acquisition, and we also built a part of the R&D from the scratch, from zero practically. That actually enabled us to come with a product. And then the last part, you actually need to sell this product, right? And when we looked at our sales processes, also the competencies of the sales engineers, only few are there, really only few. So this is why we built a kind of a sales competencies within the core team of the business development or in the business unit. And those guys then mentored the people on the field, how you can actually go into the selling of the solutions. And one of the really big thing was that when you went to the customer, you didn't stop at the procurement department as you did it when you were selling industrial goods, but you needed to go to CTO. Talk to CTO, because he would actually understand the value of the software, of the digitization, and then things would actually be rounded, and the decision would be to go into digitization. And then one more thing for us, probably it's very unique to the industry. It's the green transformation thing, where on the other side of the table we don't have our customers, we have decision makers like mayors, like politicians, and to these people we need to, with very simple but very true words, explain what's the value of the green transformation.
Absolutely, and I think you've captured two important trends. Obviously, it's about the digital, not just about the digital transformation, it's also about sustainability, how you can be, whatever you do, especially in your business, how it can impact the environment, the overall city, and especially if you're looking at the distribution. So that's a very interesting journey. Maybe I'll dig a little deeper into the sales process and the customer value realization, because one of the things from my experience, Miha, I've always seen is when you transition from legacy to new age in any field, your KRAs and KPIs are always outdated. Because whatever, because way you measured your salespeople, way you measured your customer facing people were possibly of the previous generation, right? Vis-a-vis what you want to achieve. And that becomes a bottleneck. That's one aspect, the KRAs. Second thing, which you already spoke about, is about how do you cross-train and upskill your sales and your salespeople, your solution engineering people who architect the solution, right? How do you put a overall, going from addressing a buying center like a procurement head to a buying center like a CTO, right? How do you change your entire sales engagement process itself becomes very important, because it's not just about KRA KPIs, it is about training, it's about upskilling, it is also about mapping new buying centers as you transition your business model. And that is where many a times there's a slip between the lip and the cup, right? And wanted to understand your perspective. If you can throw a little bit more color, what are the kind of challenges at the organization level, at your business level, which you faced?
Yeah, actually, we were aware that by changing the strategy so significantly as we did it, that we also need to change the other four elements of the company, of this star model of Galbraith. And this is why and then there were certain corporate things which we couldn't change, especially you mentioned the incentive part. That's kind of carved in stone, coming from the corporate down, and there was a little bit of issue how to incentivize on short-term incentives, especially people for doing this. But what was the key element in our transition is that actually the core team played kind of a startup role. So we, with our example, choose a few focus countries, economies for us, and we choose a nice mix. We choose a development country, we choose a very mature market, and we choose a country without anything. They didn't have district energy system at all. And then based on these three examples, basically in the first year, we developed 3 different models how you tackle different economies. And then when we went into development economy, there we actually saw that that we will more or less need to enter the mid-end market, because Danfoss is a premium company. We always played in the premium segment, and then the realization was, okay, we need to go down. We need to compete with the local suppliers. So that was one part. In a very mature markets, actually the competition was much more mature, because we had also competitors in our service space. However, our value proposition was integrated and different to these guys. So it was really a classical competition on having a better value proposition, having a better integration towards the customer systems and towards our own offering. And then the last part was a country where there was nothing on district energy, where we really started from the sketch. And there, as I said before, we started with associations, we started with the political levels. So there we actually brought the awareness of the green transformation. What helped us a little bit was the overall global warming, of course, so we could actually make a sense of urgency. But with that, we actually saw that there would be a completely different model. While, for instance, in a very developed economy and also, let's say, not so mature, there would be already entities who run systems like that. While customers in startup market for us were companies who actually build systems like that. It's very, very different. A different value position you need to convey to those kind of customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's what you said laid down is very, very fascinating, Miha, because on one hand, you had to bring in the culture of, because you basically incubated, I would say, a startup within a large organization, right? That's number one. So getting that cultural alignment is going to be important, and I have a few questions on that. Number one. Number two, you also had to strategize in terms of which is the path of least resistance, where you can show some early wins and successes. So that's point number two. Point number three, while doing that, I guess you have to face different kind of competition, which as an organization, possibly you wouldn't have encountered in a sweet spot area where you're a leader already. So I guess, these are fascinating nuggets which are pretty much coming out. I'll possibly dig a little deeper into the first part of it, Miha. When you build an incubator or sort of a startup within a large organization, which is called intrapreneurship, right?
Yes.
Yeah, as you know, which you build. many a times, again, I'll refer back to the cultural element comes back, because when you're in a grounds up startup, you have no fear of failure.
Mm.
You're willing to experiment. You're willing to fail fast. You're willing to go agile. You're going to okay to do Scrum, right?
Yes.
It's all hands on deck kind of a thing. Whereas when you try to put that in a corporate culture, that is why many companies are not able to transition. We have seen many companies, even in the industrial space, some of the largest names, brand names in the world, had actually not been able to transition that well. So given that, I would really like to get your your insights into that. As you build this up, how do you foster that culture of ability to try things without the fear of failure?
Yeah. Actually, when we started, I think it was like first month when we started with this small team, I said, now we are acting as a startup, and probably when we will threshold certain number of the revenue, we will need to go more into the structured way, more into the corporate way of thinking. And at that point of time, some people out of that, I would say 4 didn't believe me. Yeah? So 3, okay, understood that this will happen, but 4 didn't really believe me that this will happen. This was one part. The other part was, and I said, you will not like it. Some of you will not like it, and you will actually change the jobs. And exactly this happened. So basically, when we started with this startup culture, we went around, we went directly to the customer. We made an appointment with very important CEO of 80 billion euro company, who everybody said, wow, do you dare to go there? But there was no fear, right? There was no fear because we had nothing to lose, more or less. But then when the business started to be much more mature, we always put, even in initial stage, we always put a seats to a corporate taking it over. So we always put seats into how the processes will look further on, how the organization will take over, how things will go into the flywheel machinery. And by making it so, in the transition, of course, the number of people also increased. Yeah, I changed the title to business leader, so to vice president and so on. And the thing is that now we are much more mature. Still we are pursuing the let's say startup culture in one corner of the organization, not as a whole. Majority of the organization where the business is mature is acting as a normal part of the corporation. So we still have an area which is kind of a naughty sandbox. However, the rest is following because sometimes when you actually get like 10-15% growth year over year, that means the flywheel is running. And then you need to just to put a little bit effort to run it. So you don't need to take the all inertia from the beginning, which is happening. So as I said, part of it is still startup. Mass majority is moving much more to the corporate culture. And as I said to my team at the very beginning, 3 of the team members actually left. So 4 are still there. But the new guys which we got are half. So half are for startup, half are for the corporate.
Got it. Very interesting. You got a mix of people who's willing to try a few different things, that's what helped you move forward. If I just zoom out a little bit, Danfoss itself has been at a parent organization level. Mia has been also driving a transformation through both organic and inorganic strategies, right? And it does 2 things, right? Obviously, it gives you more capabilities. It also transforms your business model, right? Now, as a part of the business model change, what are the biggest impact you're seeing at a group company level, which is happening in Danfoss, which you wouldn't have seen that maybe 5 years back or 10 years back?
I would say one of the biggest change which is right now happening on a corporate level as Danfoss is recognition of the ESG. So ecology, social and governance, governance responsibilities, which is very, very high on the agenda. Yeah, and that's actually, from my point of view, this is excellent that this move happened. I cannot dare to say that we were the ones who actually sparked it, but for sure we were one of the sparks who made this blaze in the whole company. That basically means that the whole company is also transforming itself. Our headquarters will be CO2 neutral by 2025. All of our operations will be CO2 neutral by 2030, which is actually a very tough goal we are pursuing to. Especially bearing in mind that some of our manufacturing facilities are in very traditional coal-based economies like China. So we need to find a way how decarbonize also there. And the other thing is there is, especially in our segment, there is a special accelerator established, which is accelerating the digital business and is helping the other business units to go into the same journey as we went as well.
Very interesting, very interesting. And you know, obviously, you know, ESG or sustainability is obviously the topic of every boardroom, every government, every political leader, and that's I think good for the society, and that's a way of for corporates also to contribute back to the society. And technology will definitely play a role, a significant role into this entire model. You know, one of the key things in our talk track, in our entire series, we are talking about the impact of the subscription economy. You know, here's an example where you're experimenting or already experimented successfully of, as you said, selling spares to solutions, from providing solutions to providing outcomes, because that's what subscription economy does. It benefits, it creates value for the customer by providing outcomes, by providing ROI, and by providing a time-bound business impact. So when you transform this entire you know, shift of business model change, you have to keep your legs in both the boats, right, as you go through this transition process. And it is never going to be one boat or the other.
Yes.
Right, for especially for large corporations, which is moving into this, you know, getting into this journey. So if I look at on the new boat, basically which is getting more into the subscription model and things like that, is there a thought in the organization to have somebody who looks at this entire business model holistically? Like, you know, we have been covering over the last couple of you know, discussions through other panelists of the impact of the role of the chief revenue officer, who takes care of marketing, business development, you know, to some extent impact the product direction, look at the revenue operation and things like that. So, but for, I would say, industrial companies or industrial IoT companies, which is where the big market opportunity for organization like Danfoss is in the you know, currently as well as in the future. Do you see this kind of a shift? Again, it's more of a your own individual perspective would benefit, or there are some other models which might evolve?
No, I actually support your line of thoughts because if I take my own role is focusing on how to develop the markets, the channels, the business models, the way to the market, and at the same time our value proposition and offering through the applications, through new products, through new offering new services and so on. So when it comes to R&D and operations, these are functional areas which are actually, in our case, have significant synergies to our business units. So for instance, some of the products which we offer are exactly the same as the business unit for buildings is offering, or the business model for residential heating is offering. However, is the same platform, but this same platform then we can actually modify for the need of district energy utility. So CRO, as I see it, is actually a person who is maximizing the revenues, and then if CRO has P&L responsibility, he also needs to, and this is actually very healthy, because then you go for profitable opportunities, because suddenly you are very much interested in contribution, you are super interested in your fixed cost, and you are interested in not investing too much, so your depreciation amortization is on the right level. Also when you make decisions to make inorganic growth or to buy a technology, you always weight it. Will this bring enough benefit to the growth of the top line versus the EBIT impact? So really, this growth, which is profitable, is the key here.
Absolutely, absolutely. I guess if I summarize your thought process, what you believe is that there is a need for, especially in the new age subscription model, there is a need for an integrating role, which will look at all the strategic decisions, whether it is organic or inorganic growth through acquisition and things like that, which will not only look at growth, it will also look at the contribution, so that you're driving a profitable growth, not growth at all cost. Because at the end of the day, being a public company, there are stakeholders who would have various perspectives, and everybody is at least aligned on driving profitable growth. So yes. That's pretty much. So thank you, Miha. Really appreciate this very insightful and engaging session, and really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.